Hello and welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program tutorial. In this tutorial we will be figuring out how to go to Duna. This is the rocket that I built for this tutorial. The first stage is a mammoth engine with like some of the fuel tanks, the orange ones. Then the second stage is a ton of wolfhound engines, which are in the Making History DLC. If you don't have that DLC, you could always just use the Rhino engine, I believe. The second stage is a nuclear nerve powered stage with only liquid fuel in it because liquid fuel is the only fuel required for a nerve engine. Um, uh, the the cockpit that I'm using is also from the Making History DLC. So for getting to Duna, you want to get into an orbit so that Duna is 45 degrees ahead of you. That's what I was doing just then. I was just using time warp and eyeballing it. It's pretty easy to tell when the planet is 45 degrees ahead of you, because that's just half of 90 degrees, and 90 degrees is a perfect right angle. Um, well, what you do is you drag out prograde until you leave Duna. At you drag out prograde until you hit Duna, until you get a Duna encounter. What I did is I decided that I undershot my 45-degree angle, so I used a little bit more time warp so that I could get a better encounter. And the reason why I'm zooming out is so that I can move the maneuver node. You shouldn't have to use any radial in or radial out burns to do this, uh, because moving your maneuver node is the equivalent of doing a radial in or radial out burn. In terms of the nerve upper stage, it uses the Mark 1 fuel tanks, I think. Um, with like an adapter that goes to a cockpit from the Making History DLC. It's the Mark II cockpit. If you don't have that, you could always just use the Mark 1-3 cockpit. Cockpit, not cockpit. That would be stupid. So now that we've got a Duna encounter, we want to make a maneuver node to do an inclination change so that we intersect Duna at a place that gives us a Duna air brake. So I'm just adjusting the maneuver node. You should only have to use all six of, that was a stupid phrase. You should use all of them, all of the little directions, vectors, I think they're called, from the maneuver node. And I'm turning down my thrust limiter so that the burn time is 30 seconds, because that's just a good burn time to do most of the time. If you're above 30 seconds, that's not really a problem, but like you should almost never be under 30 seconds, unless that's like a fast burn, like deorbit burn or something. I don't know. A burn that doesn't need to be precise, but this one needs to be precise. Like, we need to get the exact right aero brake height. And if we don't, then we're bad. Um, I usually aim for about 22 kilometers above Duna. As you can see, that says 19. Oh, wait. I'm adjusting it. Wow. Making quick save. Okay, cool. And then I go back in because I was too low. And I needed to, because I got 18 kilometers, which is way too low. And I realized that. So I need to get 22. That says 19, which is lower than 22. I know basic math. Yay me. I should have probably edited out part of that sequence. And there I just turned my thrust limiter all the way down to 1, which is very low. I think that was 20 kilometer periapsis. Oh well, I know it works, because I already did this mission. This is post-production. Wow. Um, we're approaching Duna periapsis, so we need to do the air brake. As you can see, there are fuel lines going in from the two other columns of Mark 1 radial fuel tanks, so that when they're detached, the inner thingy is fully fueled. Yeah. Um, Air brakes are when you use an atmosphere to slow yourself down. I know. If you didn't know what that was, air brakes are cool. You can't use them on the Mun because there's no atmosphere, but any place with an atmosphere, well, really only on Duna, they're good. On Duna, they're they're very good. Um, because on Eve and Lathe and Jewel, you'll just usually be destroyed by re-entry heating when you try to use an air brake. I guess Kerbin is also good for air brakes too. That was me just raising my periapsis out of the atmosphere so I could actually pass through my periapsis without entering the atmosphere and crashing into the surface of Duna, which is a serious problem. That's the main reason why you don't put your periapsis too low around Duna, because you'll never burn up at Duna, because its atmosphere is so thin. But you could crash into the ground. And that was me getting into a circular orbit. So I'm going to detach the lander and put Valentina into it. The reason why I do it like that is because it's more fun. As you can see, the lander also uses fuel lines, and I accidentally reattached to the mothership. Yeah. Um. Lander design. Yeah. The lander's a central fuel tank that has a Terrier in it. That's like the upper stage engine, surrounded by 4 radial fuel tanks with fuel lines going into the central fuel tank that all have 4 Spark engines, I believe. This one uses no DDLCs. In terms of parachutes, it's got the 4 big drogue chutes and then 16 of the tiny normal parachutes. The cockpit is a Mark 1 cockpit with a junior docking port on top. And this is supposed to land on Duna and Ike, which is why their landing legs in the intersection too. It wasn't the most stable during the reentry, but we have parachutes for stability and descent things. You can actually touch down on Duna at 6.4 meters per second, which is what we were traveling at before. That's like a pretty normal touchdown speed, actually. No engines required, and Duna is so cool you can use jetpacks, the EVA packs. That's what they're called. On Duna, you can also use EVA packs to get up to like a super high altitude, and then use the parachutes to travel super long distance. The parachutes are tied to the P action group, and if you turn the altitude up all the way and the pressure all the way down, then you can use them on Duna. As you can see, for most of that ascent, I had the solar panels in because Duna has like no atmosphere basically, so you can keep your solar panels extended. Yeah, whatever. I think I said solar panels in. Well, the solar panels were out, and Duna's atmosphere is 50 kilometers up. I should have said that by now. Whatever. So I was 56 kilometers up, so I could use my solar panels. Now the lander needs to rendezvous with the mothership. The first step is an inclination change, which is the maneuver node that I just set up. You make those at the descending or ascending node, either one. And if it's at the descending node, use a normal burn, and at the ascending node, use an anti-normal burn. And then you want to get into a similar orbit to your target's orbit. But if your target is ahead of you, then you want to get into a slightly lower orbit, and if it's behind you, then you want to get into a slightly higher orbit. Um, so that's what I'm doing here. My target is ahead of me, so I got into a slightly lower orbit, and then I'm just time warping to catch up to my target. For those of you who didn't know, you can time warp using the greater than and less than keys on the keyboard. And if you're outside of the atmosphere, you can use physical time warp using Alt and the greater than or less than keys outside of the atmosphere. and I got close to my target using just what time warping like that, which is pretty cool. If you didn't, you could just use a maneuver node to like put push you closer to your target. And now since I was within like 500 meters of my target, I was just burning towards target and then burning retrograde and repeating that process until I got close. And then of course, you can't do dockings. Well, actually, this was just because I didn't want to do a docking during daylight because that's bad for videos, apparently. I mean, I didn't want to do a docking at night, so I made it at daylight. Even though you can do dockings at night, just like the video quality isn't very good. So for docking, you want to set your target as the docking port on the mothership, and then you want to set the mothership's target as the docking port on the lander, and then you make them both hold target on SAS and burn towards each other. And then if it's still not working, you can turn off SAS on the lander like right after approach. Then I made a pretty standard Ike transfer. Ike transfer maneuver display burning prograde, and then I did another inclination change. This is pretty much the same as just getting to the Mun, and you shouldn't be going to Dune if you haven't gone to Mun. Wait, did I just say Mun? The Mun. It should be the Mun. Yeah, or Minimus. You should probably, and you should have probably done a rendezvous before going to Duna too. Ike is pretty much between Minimus and the Mun in terms of size and gravity, I believe. So if you have a craft that can land on the Mun, you could just use that as your Ike lander. But I like using the upper stages of my Juno landers as my Ike landers, because then you can reuse them. And also you can refuel landers in orbit by right-clicking on a fuel tank and then alt right-clicking on another fuel tank, and then you can transfer fuel, not flu. That is a disease. Flu is a disease, not fuel. Fuel is not a disease. Me good at English. English well-speeched here. In terms of landing on Ike, there's no atmosphere, so you need to use engine burns. As you can see, this upper stage lander has no parachutes on it. This upper stage of the Duna lander had no parachutes on it, so that it could be used for Ike without having dead mass. Right before touching down, I set my ASAS. No, not ASAS. That's from MechJeb. This is not MechJeb. I set SAS to hold radial out. For those of you who are wondering, radial out, I mean, not radial out, MechJeb is a mod for Kerbal Space Program. And then to get into orbit, just made a maneuver that burns prograde. Oh, yeah, okay. And I waited to get the mothership slightly ahead of me. If you ever run out of fuel after getting into orbit, or on your way into orbit, you can EVA your Kerbals and use the EVA packs to do like all of this, basically. I don't think you can make maneuver nodes with Kerbals, so you would have to do everything manually. Interesting. One of my problems with Ike is that you can't actually time warp fast. Like, my maximum time warp was 10 times. Wait, no, it was 50 times. But I could rarely do 50 times. I could only do 50 times when I was near my apple houses. This is the approach um, rendezvous thing. Docking. It's the same as docking and doing orbit. Set set docking ports as target. Point them towards each other using the hold target on the SAS, and then just burn towards each other. As you can see here, oh, well, I actually haven't done this yet. Oh, shoot, I overshot. And see how the other one is turning manually, even though I didn't do anything? And then see how right before they docked, I turned off to SAS? And that's the fuel transfer screen if you want to transfer fuel. So now I need to leave No, I want to leave Ike on its prograde axis so that my orbit gets bigger. Prograde is the one that less bright. Like if you look at like Ike's orbital path in the map screen, the less bright one is um is the prograde axis. Um, and then you perform this burn, and then you want to go up to your new Duna apoapsis. I need water. Need water. Do go up to Duna apoapsis and perform a burn, and then you want to get a transfer window between Duna and Kerbin. I believe it's about 90 degrees. I use a transfer window calculator. I forget what it's called. I think no, it's a 75-degree angle. Yeah, that's what the angle is. And that's the same as getting from Duna to Kerbin. I mean, from Kerbin to Duna, because we're going from Duna to Kerbin right now. You make a maneuver node, and then see if you got the transfer right. And if you got it wrong, then too bad for you. You should probably download Kerbal Alarm Clock, which is the mod that helps you do transfer windows better. Um, I'm obviously not using that because I don't use mods. I'm a cool kid. I think the cool kids use mods though. Do they? I don't know what cool kids do because I'm not a cool kid. Then of course you want to set up your air brake at Kerbin, usually about 37 kilometers about, and you do not want to get a Mun encounter. Mun encounter equals bad. I do quick saves using F5 and Alt F9. Uh, quick saves are like checkpoints. You can load them if you make a mistake. I loaded a couple quick saves during this mission, and it's helpful to have quick saves. You should use quick saves. Um, I edited out me loading the quick saves because that would make me look bad. But I guess I'm just telling you right now that I loaded quick saves. So then that ruins the entire point. Anyway, for the Kerbin reentry, you want to hold retrograde on the NAPL by clicking the button that says retrograde, and you just hit the ground. Wow, wow, it go towards the ground faster. Capsule. Okay,